no? And unfortunately, that's now the culture online eh. Kasi you can actually hide behind that veneer na hindi ka makikilala. So whatever you want to say, you can say it. Hindi ka naman nagmumura sa bahay nyo. Pero pag nandun ka, iba yung personality mo sa online.
po
Hindi
yung
ba?
mga vloggers. Kaso po, politically divided po, mahirap eh. Hindi mo pagsasama yung admin na vloggers sa mga DDS na vloggers ngayon dahil medyo magkalaban sila online. And yung nasabi niyo po kanina na
It could be, it can constitute into treason, into rebellion, because they're propagating something which is inimical to the interest of our national security. And those two things. I guess that's where the problem between Congressman Marcoleta and one of the vloggers here. Mr. Chair, the power of social media was actually tested in 2001. It was not directed against individual. It actually pinned down the regime. Remember in 2001, during the Arab Spring, the power of Facebook actually, Mr. Chair, brought down more than 3 decades of regime under the Mubarak in Egypt. It's actually composed of young people pulling themselves, coming out and then asking for a change in Egypt. And actually, they used Facebook as a platform to bring down one of the most powerful regime in the Middle East. So, hindi lang ho ganun ka-powerful po ang media, ang social media, ang Facebook in particular. In fact, in the Facebook, yung mga active users, it reaches a point where if it's likened to a country, it's even more populated than China. Yung mga active users po. So, ganun po ka-powerful ngayon ang social media, mga social media platforms. I'm talking about Facebook. I was listening earlier, Mr. Chair, to the exchanges between Congresswoman Luistro and our DICT. Mr. Chair, I would just like to I'll lay down the premise. If you remember back in 2017, and most of us here are victims of fake news or sinasabi nilang information disorder. Being a politician, that's already part of our job. I mean, that's already expected of us that once you enter into politics, you automatically earn an enemy. No? It's impossible for you. Sabi nga kanina ni Manong Benny, he quoted saying from, sino to, kay Prime Minister Churchill. Alam ko, may sinabi si Churchill, a man without an enemy is made up of nothing. So, pag pumasok po kayo dyan sa politika, talagang automatic, meron kayong enemy. Sa mga members po dito, lahat po tayo naging biktima ng fake news. But to tell you a story, ako po hindi lang big victim ng fake news. Biktima rin ako because ng isang threat that was actually made by some vloggers in 2017. Remember, during the Marawi siege, one local vlogger who happens to be connected with the political party came out with this fake news na ako daw, si Senator Bam Aquino, former Senator Bam Aquino, and former Senator Trillanes, and my brother, which was then the Vice Governor, Bombit Adiong, nag-usap-usap daw kami at kinausap namin ang Dawla Islamiyah para atakihin ng Marawi City. So, it actually came out online, and what's so surprising is that former Secretary of Justice Aguirre came out with a statement and believing in that fake news. Lumabas no less than the Secretary of Justice. Ganun po ka problematic ganun po ka grabe yung fake news to a point that a certain public official may believe in that distorted information. Wala akong katotohanan nun. Fortunately, sabi nga ni Ms. Tikia, we have to go and answer this and correct all this false information. Yun po ang ginawa namin. Immediately when the statement came out, we went publicly and then rectified, kinorek po namin na di tama. And subsequently, former Secretary Aguirre apologized and rectified his statement. Ganun po kalala. Pangalawa, Facebook was also used as a means to propagate Actually, mayroon pong binigay na patong sa ulo ko during the siege. It was actually also used by violent extremists. That's why I was listening to Congresswoman Jinky. If this is continue to be unmonitored, it may border to national security threat because the platforms, the social media platforms, are also being used by the entry of violent extremists. Kasi nasa third generation warfare na po tayo, gumagamit na po sila, sophisticated na rin po ang pag-recruit nila. Meron pong nakapatong sa ulo ko na for certain million kung pwede, may ano nga sila, Mr. Chair meron na nga ho silang, they came out with the fatwa. I'm sure many of you are aware of what is fatwa is, na pwede na akong patayin. No? Kasi I was speaking on behalf of the government and denouncing the organization who made and entered Marawi City and attack our city. So ibig sabihin ganun po kalala. Though personally lahat po tayo biktima, but ako alam ko how bad if unmonitored and yung mga pumapasok pong mga fake news, kung hindi ho natin yun ma-stop, talagang hindi lang ho nagkukos yan sa personal reputation attack ng tao. It even can be used to actually cause harm or death to an individual because I've experienced that firsthand. Now, I'd like to ask po a certain follow-up. Those are simple questions lang po, Mr. Chair. Kanina po I was listening to Philippines, ano ba yun? Press One Philippines investigation. Umalis na ba?
They left already. They just left, Congressman Chong.
Okay. Narinig naman natin DICT yung kanilang presentation po, no? DICT, yes. I don't know if DICT o sa ano? Yes. So, they were able to gather all these mga accounts, no? And they said na meron mga peddlers, meron mga amplifiers, if you want to use that word. Parang pagkaintindi ko is there's a source from a foreign country, and then ito yung mga gumagawa sila ng mga narrative against, or at least to demean our claim over certain areas in the sea, West Philippine Sea in particular, and then pinipedal sa baba or binag-magnify. They were able to gather all these accounts. How may I ask? I believe this is a private company and they belong to a private sector. But may I know if the ICT would also be able to gather? Do we have the capacity to probably get all of these informations? Kasi kung if we listen to their presentation, it borders, number one, it can constitute into treason, into rebellion, because they're propagating something which is inimical to the interest of our national security. And so I'm just wondering, how do we be able to at least police? Sabi nga ni Congresswoman Jinky Luiso kanina, if it's a continuing crime being committed, why is there no arrest ever made? So I just want to find out from the ICT.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may, with regard to the question of Congressman Adiong, earlier during our presentation, we mentioned that the DICT, along with other government agencies, are looking into how certain individuals and certain accounts are helping amplify campaigns against the government. And yes, we have reported also in the past, including some press conferences, that we are aware that certain Chinese influences who claim to be US-based strategy outlets or consultancy firms, yung iba nga ginagaya pa yung westernized, I would call it westernized names of publications, parang ginagaya nila. Then they parrot the line of
Pero I think yung presentation po, Mr. Chair, kanina nung isa sa mga yung Press One Philippines, Meron si parang feeling ko may na-identify sila ng mga accounts dito eh.
Meron, Your Honor, but we don't want to, sinabi ko rin po kanina, we are willing to discuss in executive session.
Okay.
These are all,
But you do have the data and the information of
we
all of
have
these.
some information. I think and we do share this information to our.
But you don't need a new law for that, for you to be able to track down and maybe probably find a possible offenses that these accounts or those who are behind operating these accounts are guilty of, no? That at least at the very least they have violated a certain laws.
Thank you for asking that question, Your Honor. We go around certain laws. For example, you've heard of the case of espionage.
Okay.
We've also filed cases, yung binanggit ko kanina, yung nagre-recruit, si Mr. Wang, who was recruiting AFP personnel, both active and retired, using multiple accounts, multiple FB accounts. But, so we use existing laws. But of course,
But let me ask you this, Mr. Chair. Are these contents also being peddled by vloggers online? Or are they done discreetly? Kasi gusto ko yun ang gusto kong tanungin eh. Are all these accounts operated behind, kasi may sinasabi silang bots eh. I'm sorry but I'm not really familiar with with these terms. Hindi ako techie na tao eh. Meron akong naririnig sa inyo na it's being operated by AI. Sometimes hindi siya tao kasi yung responses niya is to kumbaga it's not normal for a person yung speed ng kanyang pag-react sa mga certain post online. So are all these accounts that are under nakuha ng are these all being operated by AI or by certain groups or individuals? And my next question is, are all these contents also being peddled by known vloggers? And what are the steps that you have done, just to at least ma-stop itong ganitong mga information? Kasi it borders our national security. That concerns me.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, the answers to your queries, we'd like to have an executive session.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So yeah, would you like to do a follow up on that?
So, as our as part of our mandate to also inform our legislators, we are more than willing to discuss these national security.
But at least you have identified some vloggers.
We have, sir, with regard to your question of whether or not vloggers or some vloggers, without naming them, have been parroting lines that are coming from
Yes.
from the Chinese, from the Communist Party of China, the answer is yes. But whether they do so willingly or they believe it or they do so maliciously is beyond me.
So what are the grounds for you to at least be apprehensive in arresting them? I'm just for the sake of discussion lang.
So there are various reasons.
Do we have meron bang batas na hindi na or it just yung lack of batas para ma-implement
No.
yun? O halimbawa ma-aresto yung mga ganitong mga peddlers?
Sir, Your Honor, if we're talking about national security, if we're talking about our claim on the West Philippine Sea,
Because that's what I gathered from the presentation eh.
There are various reasons kung ba't natin pa hinuhuli. It could be that there are follow-up operations. It could also be that we're trying to get to the bottom of it. Kung national security, sir.
But it's not because there's no batas that is now operated.
Your Honor, it's to be truly honest, it's a very complex question. Number one.
Kasi in aid of legislation tayo dito, that's why we are soliciting all your inputs and answers, kasi we want to find out if there's kung may absence ba of a certain legislation that we need to enact para at least
Yes,
we can close the gap.
Yes, sir. Kasi medyo complex yung question. If we're talking about espionage and malign influence, there is a law being supported by the National Security Council and the National Security Advisor regarding the amendments to the espionage law. With regard to fake news, the ICT and the CICC as a council have been actively espousing for social media regulation and also for amendments to the Cybercrime Prevention Act. So, I understand, Your Honor, that PH1 gave a very comprehensive and perhaps compelling picture of how Chinese malign information seeps into the political blogosphere. But like I said, Mr. Chair, while we have some information that may possibly corroborate that claim,
I understand if it's I understand if it's a classified information and you are not supposed to share it here.
But yes, Your Honor, we do espouse for certain amendments to certain laws to make our life a lot easier.
Yeah, okay. Kasi yun ang pagkadating ko dito, Mr. Chair, yun ang unang-una kong narinig eh. The reason why I premised my questions yung background po na na-experience namin in 2017 because this is not a joke. I mean, you've seen how the effects of the entry of violent extremism using the media platforms, social media platforms in recruiting others, young people. And kasi what they did, Mr. Chair, based on our experience, is that they also propagated fake news eh. And somehow they gathered audience at itong nang nangyari. That's why ito pong issue about yung mga information, misinformation, disinformation, it does not only circle around the issue of politics or propaganda. Something is even more sinister when they use it to attack our national sovereignty and national territory, di ba? Kasi na-experience po natin yun back in 2017. So, Mr. Chair, I hope that the ICT and whatever law enforcement agencies are involved, but I hope you can finally get to the bottom of this, and perhaps we can use all those information that you gather to probably help this committee in coming up with the measure so that we can not only protect the sabi ko nga ni mga kasamahan ko dito, not only to protect the narrative based on truth and facts, but as well as to protect not individual rights, but also to protect our collective rights to exist as a nation. Kasi feeling ko that's where they will also infiltrate and then probably attack, threaten our democracy. Sabi nga kanina, yun ang napag-uusapan, because democracy will be not really fully functional if it's based on falsehood and truth, if we are propagating falsehood instead of upholding the truth and correct information. Mr. Chair, let me go to more personal level po na concern. Mr. Chair, I heard earlier, may I ask Ms. Malutikia, we're friends on Facebook, pero na-deactivate ko na po yung personal Facebook because I've been receiving all these attacks. So I prefer to maintain my sanity rather than engage in trolls, paid trolls, and bashers. You mentioned about code of ethics. I guess Congressman Paulo Ortega mentioned in his closing remarks kanina po na there seems to be apparent lack of decency in how we engage ourselves, communicate ourselves, and make connections with others in this online community. You also mentioned about code of ethics kasi alam ko in broadsheets and periodicals and even the mainstream media, what they have is they have editorials. Now, before they come out with a certain news item, they have to pass through the editorial, kailangan i-assess, kailangan makita, ma-vet kung totoo ba talaga yung mga information na ilalabas nila. Kasi magkaiba po yung sa opinion writers, as you are part of that, yung mga op-ed, mga opinion writers, and from news reporting, di ba? In this case po sa social media mga platforms, there seems to be a mixture between news reporting and opinions, 'di ba? Kaya nga sinasabi ko there's a hair-splitting difference na between opinion and opinions who are actually parang offering an alternative facts, 'di ba? Parang ganun na nangyari. You mentioned about code of ethics. There seems to be a lack of it. We all agree on that. Can you expound to us how we could be able to probably help this committee and formulate? Kasi yun talaga din po ang nakikita ko. And without this standard of protocols o standard of ethics, talagang tama po yung sinabi ni Sir, na mukhang ang mga Pilipino ngayon, mas nag-i-enjoy sila doon sa pakikipagsamurahan online. No? And unfortunately, that's now the culture online eh. Kasi you can actually hide behind that veneer na hindi ka makikilala. So whatever you want to say, you can say it. Hindi ka naman nagmumura sa bahay nyo, pero pag nandun ka, iba yung personality mo sa online. Hindi ho ba? So what standard, can you expound on that? Because it actually caught my attention. This issue really is not only a policy direction, it's not a policy debate. This is also a mixture of policy debate and valid judgment debate. Ito pang nag-uusapan natin dito. So I would like to you to expound on that and maybe help us kung paano natin maka-formulate kung ano yung code of ethics na po pwedeng applicable sa online community.
Mr. Chairman, Congressman Adiong, probably you can situate the formulation of a code of ethics through crowdsourcing. So everyone gets to contribute their sense because it's actually community policing. The other thing that I would want to bring out is that yung konsepto ng first to report, that actually drives engagement.
Ano po yung first to report?
First to report. For example, may nangyayari yung hearing dito, una mong na-vlog, una mong nasabi, then everyone will be going to you and listening to you. So there are nuances in the ecosystem of the social media that is very important for everyone to understand. And I would rather suggest that a draft be formulated and made public so you crowdsource things. So it is not stifling the rights, the freedoms, but essentially telling everyone, oh, ito yung 12 rules natin. What do you think? Kasi mahirap pong manggaling sa akin, yun yung lalabas na naman is value judgment and the biases. All of us have our own biases and we may consider it as value judgment, others might consider it as an affront to their belief system. So I would rather that code of ethics emanate from the community
itself.
Yeah.
So what you're saying po, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Tikia, is that okay. So what you're saying po, kasi dun po sa mga sa mainstream media, di ba meron po silang KBP?
Yes.
Di ba? Kilusan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Yes, sir.
Tama po ba? And meron sila pong sariling sanction. Within their community, nagkakaroon they
Policing
adopted a
the
certain criteria, standard of ethics. In the case of the vloggers right now, wala po ba, Mr. Gamboa? Wala po kayong ganon where the vloggers, your community, come together and maybe, agree that there's certain ethical standard that we need to at least maintain and uphold. And wala pong ganong klaseng
Wala po, Mr. Chair. Kasi po, marami pong efforts before na subukang ipaggrupo yung mga vloggers. Kaso po, politically divided po, mahirap eh. Hindi mo pagsasama yung admin na vloggers sa mga DDS na vloggers ngayon dahil medyo magkalaban sila online. And yung nasabi niyo po kanina na pinatayin niyo yung, you deactivated your Facebook dahil ang dami. Yun po yung goal nila eh. Ang goal nila is yung anyone na dissenting opinion from them, they will barrage, they will bully, hanggang mag-off po ng page para hindi na po mag-post online. So, ang goal po kasi talaga minsan is mambully.
to silence and censor.
To silence and censor.
Individual.
So, hanggat hindi sila lumalagpas doon sa linya na libelous, mahirap pong kontrolin talaga minsan yung pambubuli nila.
So would it be impossible? Would you think that it would be impossible for your community to gather together and maybe come up? Would it be impossible?
Hindi naman po impossible.
Okay.
Pero it would take a lot of hard work to come together. And kaya ako po, personally, yung mga hindi umattend na DDS, marami po doon kaibigan ko. Kasi nahihiwalay ko yung trabaho namin doon sa personal na friendship. Yung iba po kasi hindi eh. Kapag nandun ka sa kabilang side, kaaway ka namin kahit sa personal na buhay.